Hey, welcome into Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbogast-Gwynn alongside Dalton Middleton. How are you doing tonight?
I'm sure I'm doing a little better than you are. I know you guys had a hectic few days or last 24 hours in Alex City. What's your day kind of been like so far?
We did. So before we get started, we do want to, say a little shout out to those in Alexander City that were affected by the storm. It was a wind burst. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, or a microburst. A microburst. And yeah, so I guess that's a function of clouds and temperatures hitting each other, and it was sudden and it was fast and it was bad. So it's been an interesting day, but I'm here now.
Yeah, I won't lie. Last night I went out to the bar and I went with Jillian. We went and played bingo, and all of a sudden I get on Facebook and I got home and I was just like, "What happened to Alex City?"
Yeah, it was like the world kind of exploded there for a second. But now we are here to talk about football. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Dunning Roofing. We appreciate your support of high school athletics and our endeavors here at Talbot's Publishers. We are here at Tallahassee at Elmore County for our game of the week.
We're here at Burt Haney Field and this is going to be a good one. I think this is the annual rivalry. I think they played every year since the 1970s.
Yeah, it's been like 59 seasons.
Yeah, they date back to the 50s, but it's been consistently since the 1970. I think was the first year. And it's been a pretty fun rivalry the last few years, especially since I've been here. All the games have been close, but I know Tallahassee's kind of dominated this series, especially the last decade or so. Elmore County won last year, kind of. Tallahassee had such a bad season. Elmore County kind of took that one, and then this year, Tallahassee looks to be a little better. Elmore County looks to be about as like they were last year, as good as they were last year. So I don't really know what's going to happen today. I know it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a fun one. What I was so impressed with last week, I got a chance to see Elmore County. They played Dadeville, and just their defense. I mean, the way that they just kind of flinged the ball is very impressive.
Yeah, you got so many guys on the defense that are returning. You got Connor Pike, who was so good last year. Tyler Payton, he was up for Player of the Week this week. He really was effective running the ball, but he plays safety as well. You got Jackson Mann, who's a 3-year starter. This is his 4th year starting. Luke Reiner, the school's sack leader, all-time sack leader. He's on the defensive line. Caleb Spivey, just those guys that just caused so much mayhem on that defense. And they didn't allow a single touchdown last week. Daville's only touchdown was a fumble return. The defense is playing pretty stellar, but Tallahassee's got some offensive weapons. Quarterback, they got Trent Morris there. He's a sophomore. He's in his 2nd year starting now.
Mm-hmm.
He threw he had 2 touchdowns. He ran for 1 and threw for 1 last week. And so, they got some offensive weapons. Chase Chumley out there had a really good week last week. Caught a 2-point conversion, a couple long passes. Jordan King, he's a transfer from Pike Road. He caught a 50-yard touchdown last week. So I think they're probably gonna test Elmore County's secondary and defense a little more than Dadeville did. But we're gonna see, because I know Elmore County's taking pride in that defense right now.
Yeah, they definitely should. I think it's definitely quite the atmosphere out here, too. We were just commenting, we're still an hour and a half about from game time when we got here, and the parking lot was already starting to fill up. You already see people out here. What is kind of this rivalry like for this community?
Well, there's been some, just the last few years, and what it means to the kids, really, more than, obviously it means a lot to the communities, but, you've seen some kind of, some bad things, some good things with these kids, and how much they've enjoyed this rivalry and beating each other in the last few years with some videos and stuff like that come out after the game and before the game. And, you can always see on Instagram these kids talking smack to each other and stuff like that. But, it's just, it's bragging rights. And, I think it means, Tallahassee's, especially in the last decade, I think they won like 7 or 8 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of held on to this thing, and then all of a sudden, Elmore County comes out last year and it's been on the rise since Kyle Caldwell got over and got here, and they have it means a lot to this eclectic community for sure. Of course, it means a lot to Tallahassee too, and Coach O'Neill in his first year, but it's this is a bragging rights.
Big one for the kids.
Yeah.
What have you seen over the past couple of years with Kyle Caldwell? I mean, obviously, to go from 0-10 to what they're doing now, it's a big change in a very short period of time. Where do you kind of attribute that?
Well, I think, obviously, I think Kyle is a good coach, but he is a player's coach.
Yes.
And you see that a lot nowadays where, you get some older coaches who are still fantastic coaches, but they don't relate to the players as much. I think Caldwell relates to the players a lot. He treats the players well, and he come up there and these kids want to play for him. He got here his first year, and I think they had 20 more kids on the roster than the year before, because he just went and hit the hallways. And it's just, I want you to play, I want you to play, I want you to play. And now these kids want to play. They went 7-4, made the playoff after going 0-10, and all of a sudden more kids come out and more kids come out.
Right, success breeds success. Yeah,
and I think they've also, had some kids that, maybe 4 years ago or, 3 years ago, the same kids are starting now that were starting then, and so
Right.
all these kids have so much experience, and you've seen them grow so much. But yeah, I mean, I think he's just a coach that kids want to play for.
Yeah. And I think you'll see that with Tallahassee, with Coach O'Neill coming in. I think he's got that similar vein of being very relatable to the kids and recruiting very hard and that kind of thing through the school.
Yeah, and you know, I think you've already kind of seen that a little bit, because I mean, I think just looking at the roster numbers, I did a story on it earlier this year or before the season. I think they have about, it's not crazy amount, but 9 or 10 more kids this
Right.
season than they did last season, and that just makes a difference. And
That
especially,
makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and you get, you know, some of these skill players that maybe they were lacking, or a lineman they were lacking that maybe moves in, or, you know, decides to come out. You know, they have a fantastic wrestling program,
Right.
and a
they
lot of
do.
those kids didn't play football, but you look at the lineup now, or look at the roster now, there's some of those kids that are, you know, in the state championship wrestling who are now playing football, and so
Right.
that makes a big difference.
Yeah. There's one more thing I want to touch on with Elmore County is the 2 quarterback system. You see a lot of high school, you used to see a lot more high schools do it. And now I feel like a lot of teams are getting away from it, but Elmore County, it seemed to work for them. I think it really threw off, especially Dadeville's defense, which was very strong, played a very good game. But I think that they both brought such good stuff to the table that it's hard to pick necessarily who to start.
Yeah, and you know, you got the 2 kids. You're gonna have Gage Davis, who's kind of the smaller, you know, gonna throw it around a little more, and then Caleb Spivey, who also starts defensive end, and he is kind of your bigger kid, and he runs it a little bit more, and you know, I think they just like that balance, which you know, I think defenses could probably key on that a little bit, but you know, I think they're just, Elmore County is a run-first team,
Right.
and there's no doubt about that, you know, and so they're going to get in there, and Caleb can throw the ball, and he's probably really the kind of QB1, I guess, really.
Right.
He's getting there. He's going to run the ball, the Wildcat. He's going to do all this stuff, and then he can throw the ball a little bit. But if they need somebody that's maybe a little faster,
Right.
you know, let's throw Gage in there and see what he can do. Throw the ball around a little bit, and you know, see what some receivers can make some plays. But
Yeah.
you know, I think it does keep, you know, defenses on their toes, because it's just, you know, some guy, you know, you prep all week for Caleb Spivey, you know, at 215 pounds,
Right.
6'2", and then all of a sudden Gage Davis comes in and a little smaller, skinnier,
totally different,
and
yeah.
a lot much faster, runs a whole different offense, and so it's difficult for defenses to plan for that.
I'll be interested to see how it plays out throughout the rest of the season, if they continue to run that or if it is sort of a feeling out what's going to work.
Yeah, well, you know, they kind of did it last year. You know, they started off with Riles McNeely at quarterback last year, and he was the primary quarterback one. But you know, towards the end of the year, they started running a lot of Wildcat. Caleb got in there and kind
Yeah.
of ran some Wildcat stuff, and you kind of just saw that grow. So it'll probably be a lot of the same things. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to take a quick break. We have a full slate of games that we're going to get to after the break, but we do want to hear a word from our sponsor.
Hi, my name is Andrew McGreer. I'm the owner of Dunning Roofing. We serve an area from Birmingham to Montgomery to Auburn to Opelika and all the surrounding Lake Martin area. Well, we've been in business for 25 years almost, and we've been growing every year since then. Recently, we won an award by GAF, who's the largest manufacturer of shingles in the world, and we've achieved a Master Elite status. That Master Elite status is critical, not only for us as a company. Only 2% of roofers worldwide ever achieve this designation. We got it because we're exceptional. We look forward to helping you.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Hey, welcome back to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbiaz Gwynn alongside Dalton Middleton, and we are here at Elmore County for the Tallahassee rivalry matchup, our game of the week. we've got players right behind us, so we're going to try not to get hit.
I thought I was getting run over right there.
I thought you were too. So we're going to attempt not to. If we have to move quickly, you guys know why. So we talked the first segment about Elmore County Tallahassee, that rivalry, and it's kind of rivalry week a little bit. Benjamin Russell heads to Clay Central, and that's sort of one of those budding non-region rivalry games that they've built up over the years, especially with Coach Danny Horn returning from Benjamin Russell back to Clay Central.
Yeah, and I think, this is a game that was played last year, and, Ben Russell had such a good season last year, and Central Clay beat them, I think it was like 30-13, and that was one thing that Smitty has talked about, that he just did not think his team played well. That was just...
Yes.
And that's... I think he's got this one circled on his schedule all year, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen with this one because Ben Russell, last week they played Opelika, lost by 2 touchdowns. They really they didn't play bad. I wasn't there, obviously, but just looking at it, to stay within 2 touchdowns at Opelika is going to be a pretty good little 7A team. It's impressive, especially with a new quarterback, a new main target in Sedarian Morgan, and it'll be interesting to see this one because Clay County is just they just run down your throat. And that's what they're going to do.
Right. That's what they're going to do.
And I feel like that's kind of Ben Russell's strength is on the defensive line. You got the Caleb Spivey kid, not the one from Eclectic behind us over here. But,
right. Different Caleb Spivey.
Yeah, he kind of heads that, up front. And then you got Noah Long, I think is his name, a linebacker, that kind of that strong defensive 7 in the box for Ben Russell. It's going to be interesting to see because, the one thing I don't know about Central Clay is, there was a kid last year, LaDainian Boyd, who was so good at running back, and he got hurt in that last game against Wetumpka. I don't know if he's back or not, but I do know he's on the roster again. I don't know if he's healthy, but they handled business last week against Hanley. I think it was 40-7.
40-7.
Hanley's a top 5 team in 4A.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that Benjamin Russell is going to have his hands full just because you look at this game and you think it's a 5A team versus 6A team, and you think that Benjamin Russell should have the edge, but really it's very small, very similar in school size between the two. And I think that it's always one of those things where you just never really know what's going to happen because it's a rivalry game. And because so many of them have been so close. Benjamin Russell really needs to shore up any mistakes. When it's making silly penalties and before the whistle penalties and stuff like that is what's really hurt them last week against Opelika.
Well, what I kind of want to see is how does Elijah Johnson improve in game 2?
Yes.
Because even from the first half against Opelika, he didn't score anything. They were shut out. He comes out, throws 2 touchdown passes in the second half. Now that he's able to watch a week of film, he's got the varsity first game jitters out of the way. How does he come out against a team that probably doesn't have quite as good of a defensive line, doesn't have quite as good of a defense, and see how he does? Because he might be able to find Sedarian Morgan. I know there was a freshman, I can't think of his name right now.
Michael Greer.
Yeah, that kind of opened up and kind of popped out as a star for them. And if he comes out as a clear-cut number 2 weapon, all of a sudden that's a new dimension for that Ben Russell offense.
Yeah, and they've got to be able to establish the run. I mean, I think that's one of the things that they didn't do very successfully against Opelika. And they have the running back in TJ Wilson, who I think is a very capable 6A back. He's got the speed and he's got a little bit of size. It's just being able to establish the line for him and the holes for him and things like that moving forward, I think is going to be important.
The good thing for TJ is he's not going to face another defensive line as good as Opelika is the rest of the year.
That's true. I think Opelika was definitely a high starting point for Benjamin Russell, and hopefully it'll be moving on up from here. Also playing in not so much a rivalry game, but still an important game, is Wetumpka at Chelsea. How do you feel like you got to see Wetumpka last week? They came out with a win. How do you feel like they fared in week 0?
I was very impressed with the defense. I would be looking at this game, Wetumpka had a stellar defensive game. I think they allowed 140, 150 yards last week altogether, and 100 of those came on 2 plays.
Yeah.
The rest of the game, I think they didn't allow a single first down. They had a defensive touchdown. They had, I think, 4 or 5 turnovers. They were causing fumbles, blocking punts, blocking PATs, just doing everything they can defensively on special teams. And then you look over at Chelsea, and I don't remember who they beat, but I know they won 24-3, didn't allow a touchdown.
Right.
And so this game could easily be a 14-10, 7-7 game in the fourth quarter. Wetumpka is one of those teams, kind of like Ben Russell we just mentioned. They got a lot of new faces on that offense.
Yes.
Tyler Johnson actually came in from Opelika, transferred. He was from Wetumpka as a freshman, started there, or didn't start. He played a little as a freshman, then transferred out, transferred somewhere else, and all of a sudden he's back for Wetumpka senior year. He looked pretty good. I think he threw for over 200 yards. He was fine on offense. they just had trouble sustaining drives and keeping drives
Yeah.
going. And, you know, they've got the running backs. Jimmy King transferred in from Sidney Lanier. He got hurt a little bit last week, and I'm sorry if I butchered this kid's name. Tudrius Hetherington. Tudrius Hetherington. He came in and he ran all over the place.
It's interesting to me how many transfers there were that came into Wetumpka, and I wonder how that factors into the cohesiveness of the team. I mean, this is a team that hasn't been playing together. I mean, many of them have, but pieces haven't been playing together for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
And so they don't, know each other and things like that. And obviously, as they're trying to replace Nate Rogers, who was kind of the major piece of the puzzle last year, I think it's definitely an interesting. They're going to have to find their identity pretty early on.
Yeah, and I think the one thing with Tyler Johnson coming in at quarterback is he has played with those kids before. True. As a freshman, he knows all those kids that are in the senior class. He's still friends with them, and so that one probably doesn't. That one probably gelled pretty quick. I feel like.
Yeah.
They did have a lot of transfers. A lot of them, a couple from Sidney Lanier. Lanier and Carver merged this past year. A couple of those kids just went off to different schools. A couple of them landed at Wetumpka, and they were happy to get them. And so the offense didn't gel, I think, as well as they would have liked last week. They're probably going to look a lot better. It's week one. No one looked great in week one. And they're playing Chelsea. It's going to be a little bit tougher. I say that, but Beauregard had a really good defense last week. But if Wetumpka walks out of here with allowing 7, 10, 14 points, that defense might actually be legit. Kelby Walker, he was up for Player of the Week as well this week. He had two at a safety spot. He kind of plays that hybrid safety linebacker role.
Right.
He had 2 sacks. He had a forced fumble. He scored a touchdown on defense. He blocked a punt. He blocked a PAT. He was just really all over the place. And he kind of, Bear Woods has talked about him all offseason, talking about how good he is and how he's going to have a breakout year. And he certainly started that way. So Chelsea's going to be tough. They come down from 7A to 6A, so they're going to be a bigger school. Going to have more kids. It's going to see, and they got to go. Wetumpka got to go on the road to play.
On the road, and it's a long trip too. I want to touch on how important it is to go 2-0. Right? Some of these, it's sort of like week 1, you win, you lose, but now it's week 2, and then now it starts to be like, okay, like there's only 10 weeks, right? So like, how important is it to start 2-0, 1-1? At this point, when we haven't gotten to region play yet, it's just something I was thinking about.
Well, region play starts next week,
right?
And so I think week 2 is much more important than week 1, just in the sense of you're building these kids' confidences up.
Right.
You come out and win week 1 by 60, and then all of a sudden you lose week 2 by 25, 30 points, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, what's my team actually made of?
What am I? Yeah.
Yeah, but you come out and say Wetumpka's defense holds them to 14 points, and they go into Russell County next week, starting region play, and they're confident. They're going to be cocky on that defensive side. They're going to be ready to play. They're going to start believing in themselves more, and that's kind of I think that's the biggest thing when you go 2-0 is the team's going to start believing in themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to thank our sponsor, Dunning Roofing. We appreciate your support as well as your support of high school athletics. We're going to take one quick break, and then we got a couple other games that we want to touch on before we sign off for the evening.
Hi, my name is Andrew McGreer. I'm the owner of Dunning Roofing. We serve an area from Birmingham to Montgomery to Auburn to Opelika and all the surrounding Lake Martin area. Well, we've been in business for 25 years almost, and we've been growing every year since then. Recently, we won an award by GAF, who's the largest manufacturer of shingles in the world, and we've achieved a Master Elite status. That Master Elite status is critical, not only for us as a company. Only 2% of roofers worldwide ever achieve this designation. We got it because we're exceptional. We look forward to helping you.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
welcome back to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbogast-Quinn alongside Dalton Middleton. We are here at Elmore County for our Game of the Week, Tallahassee at Elmore County. Before we get our final predictions, there's a couple other games that we want to touch base on, and we want to keep with our theme of rivalry week. So Hooper is headed to Edgewood, and that is Edgewood's first game of the season.
Yeah, Edgewood had a bye week in week 0 last week for I don't know why, but more power to them, I guess. They had a lot of practice, and I'm sure they're ready to hit somebody. But this has been a pretty good rivalry game the last few years. I know both teams are excited. This is one that I've seen a lot of smack talk because on social media, those Hooper kids love to talk smack to Edgewood and vice versa. Last year was a game that was like, I'm pretty sure it was kind of the middle of the season. It was like Hooper was off to like a 4-1 start. Edgewood was off to a, kind of whatever start, and then they get into area play, region play. And then Hooper just laid an egg. It was like 20-2 or something like that. And I think Edgewood is probably feeling like they can handle this one again. We'll see. Hooper's played last week. They lost to Jackson Academy. I think it was 38-34. Edgewood is going to have a lot of size, though, that I don't know if Hooper can handle. Brock Witt's going to be their quarterback. He's, 6'4", 230. Parker Shaw's the running back. He's 6'1", 220. They've got their offensive line. I think they got 3 kids that are over 250, over 6 foot. They got a lot of size for only having 20 kids on the roster.
I was going to say, what's interesting to me about Edgewood is even though they only have 20 kids on the roster, it doesn't seem like they only have 20 kids on the roster. I think because of what they make up for with size and talent.
Yeah, and they've returned a lot of guys from last year. Obviously, you lose a 2-time player of the year in Gabe Lemaster that we've had. But you get some kids. They had a couple transfers. One from Stanhope, Grayson Jones, who I know they're really excited about. He's going to play receiver and DB, and they like what he can bring. A lot of athleticism outside. But they're kind of like how we described Eclectic earlier, Elmore County earlier. They're going to run down your throat. That's what they're going to start to do. It's going to be hard to tackle Brock and Parker, just because of their sheer size, and they're going to run for 3 or 4 yards a game, and the game score might end up, 14-7.
Right.
But as long as Edgewood walks out with a win, they don't care.
They don't care, exactly.
But Edgewood's also got some talent on defense. We just talked about these guys on offense, but you get a Zane Talley kid back on defensive line who just wrecked offensive lines last year. He was an all-state kid last year, and he has been so good. He returns, and I know they're really excited to have him. And then they just have some skill players who are really good athletes to play their sports. That are, you got Ethan Evans, Landon Smith, guys like that who are just going to make plays in the secondary and outside of the receiver. And it's that one should be fun. I think Edgewood. My prediction is Edgewood walks out with a win, but it's also their first game, and Hooper's got a game under the belt. So
I think that's why I picked against Hooper in the end. Also in a rivalry game is Horseshoe Bend is headed to Wadley. They call this a battle of 22. These teams are located very close together. Horseshoe Bend off to a 1-0 start, which is always exciting for the Bend. And another winnable game, I think, tonight against Wadley.
Yeah, the one our mission is, you saw it last week, I think, against Sachs. And Horseshoe Bend just ran the ball so well, which is what they're going to do. That's the offense they run. They run that wing tee, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, wishbone kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what it was. And Braxton Wilson's going to run. He's kind of like we'll talk about him in a little bit. Arthur McQueen, just kind of a power back. He just runs over guys. But then, I think it was Corey Woods. Mentioned earlier.
It's kind of like the thunder and lightning situation.
Yeah, he's kind of got that speed. He moved from receiver to running back, and they kind of like that combo, and it worked last week. I don't know too much about Wadley. I know they're usually decent, I think, but that's one team I've not been too familiar with because I don't think any of the Elmore County teams the last 3 years have ever played them that I've covered. So,
I think we're all secretly rooting for the Generals this, on the TPI side. Maybe not so secretly since I'm saying it on live, but the Generals have a very winnable schedule this year. It's been a long time since they've been to the playoffs. That's ultimately their goal, and off to a 1-0 start makes a big difference. Speaking of Arthur McQueen, Prattville plays at Stanhope, featuring Arthur McQueen. I love his name. It's my favorite of them all. What do you think? What do you think from that game?
Well, you kind of mentioned you love his name right there. I have unofficially in the preseason nicknamed him Lightning. I'm sure somebody calls him Lightning out there, but he's gotten a little faster.
Love it.
You saw it last week against Marbury. He ran for 290 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's third in the state in rushing right now. After a lot more people put in their stats and stuff. that's their offense. They're going to run it through Arthur. They're kind of running that V or triple option type offense. They're going to run the ball first. They got a new quarterback in Zach Holcomb who runs the ball. He does well. They got Darian Smoke over there. That they have so many kids that can just run the ball, and that's what they're going to do. I think they had a few fumbles last week and a few turnovers that would have that kept that score as close as it was with Marbury. But I don't know what to think about this game because Prattville's completely dominated the series in the last decade.
They have,
and
they're so strong defensively always.
Yeah. And then Prattville came out last week and beat Pike Road.
That was what I said. That was kind of again why I picked Prattville in the end, because I think if you can beat Pike Road, you can hang with the big boys.
Yeah. I did see from what I've gathered and what I saw on social media and talked to a few coaches and stuff is Prattville really won that game on special teams. I think they have a kid, Donovan Brown, who he returned one for a touchdown. I think he returned one to a 5, then to the 5-yard line. Then he had one that he recovered a fumble, on like a punt or something, and so he really just completely took over that game. And all 3 of his special teams, plays ended up being touchdowns, and so that changes it from I think a 37-20 loss to a 41-37 win.
Exactly. So they'll need to be Stanhope will need to be careful on special teams, be looking out for that.
Yeah, and I think when I talked to Coach Hunter Adams, he said that he thought Zach Holcomb at quarterback was a little too unselfish was a little too unselfish. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. It's a little too unselfish. Needed to be a little more selfish.
Yeah, and make some plays with his legs, and honestly just try to. He said he thinks he got a little nervous at sometimes and didn't really take the plays that he felt like he should have taken or thrown the pass he should have thrown. And I think that's something they're working with this week. And because against Prattville and a 7A team, even with a team like Prattville who maybe doesn't have a great record because of the region they play in, the defense is still going to be super strong. And there are going to be a lot of kids, and they're going to be able to stop a lot of what Stanhope does.
Right, absolutely. So before we sign off and our PA takes over, let's get a final prediction on tonight's game.
You want to start or you want me to start?
You start.
I think Eclectic's going to walk out with this one. I do think it's going to be low scoring.
I was going to go high scoring.
I think Talisie's going to be able to score a little bit, but Eclectic's defense has been so strong. I'm going to guess 27-20.
Okay, I'll say 48-21, Elmore County.
Okay.
High flying game.
Yeah, you got a lot of faith in the Elmore County offense. We're going to see.
I do.
What Caleb Spivey and Gage can do out there at QB.
I don't know why I said 48. That's a lot of points. Maybe more like 41. How about let's do that, 41-21.
I think the last 2 years they've been like 26-20, 27-21. So that's around my guess. But I think it's going to be a good game.
I think it'll be a good game too. I hope so. So if you guys aren't here yet, get to Burt Haney Field. If you can find a parking space, this place is already packed full, and we are still 31 minutes from kickoff. So again, we want to thank Dunning Roofing for sponsoring us and sponsoring high school athletics in our Tri-County area. Make sure that you subscribe to the newspapers, pick up Sports Extra. We'll have all of our coverage for tomorrow, and we will sign off.
Father, thank you so much for this beautiful day to come out and